We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, and we're on Siman Resh Salivav, starting Seif Bet, Daf Ayin Aleph, Amud Aleph of the regular prints of your Mishna Beruras, discussing the halachot of Havdalah after Tfilat Arvita Motzei Shabbat, when you do it on a cup of wine, and Mavdilin Alapat. We had in Hilchot Kiddush that perhaps when a person does not have a cup of wine, nor you have Chamar Medina, you will say the Kiddush on the bread, on Challah. But by Havdalah, ein Mavdilin Alapat. You cannot do Havdalah, says Rav Amram Gaon, says the Tosafot, and Paskins the Shulchan Aruch. On bread you cannot say Havdalah. Aval ala shchar Mavdilin. But you could do it on shchar, you could do it on beer, on Chamar Medina. If it's considered an important drink in that country, in that city, the people give it a certain level of importance and chashivut, then it could be used as the beverage upon which you would say Havdalah. It's not limited to beer, it will be also extended to any drink, any beverage that would pass for Chamar Medina. It will have a certain element of importance. I mentioned before, Moshe Feinstein says Coca-Cola is not Chamar Medina, even though that probably is one of the most popular drinks, but it's not something important. It's not something that you sit together with somebody over that drink. You could meet over coffee, you could meet over tea. Like, when you want to meet with somebody, says, let's talk over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. You don't say, let's talk over a cup of Coke. So again, juices is more complicated. Perhaps many of the juices nowadays will be considered a popular drink, which is also important. You will serve a cup of orange juice to a guest when they come. It is considered something you do, so that perhaps will be considered Chamar Medina. Again, this becomes a hot topic and a well discussed and something that we have a lot of literature in the past generation about it. What is considered and what's not considered Chamar Medina, but whatever is included in the category of Chamar Medina could be used for Havdalah, not just necessarily beer. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Chutz min hamayim, but water, of course, is not. Even though the water could be $10 a bottle, you have this a whole business of alkaline water, pH 8 point whatever, and it's from the mountains of Fuji and whatnot. All of that is important, but at the end of the day, water is not a chashiv drink. Is considered, your life depends on it, but it's not considered something that you serve to someone necessarily. It's to quench a person's thirst. Is not anything outside of that, and therefore it will not be considered a Chamar Medina, despite all of its importance. Says the Ramah, V'tov yoter lavdil al kos pagum shel yayin ma'al shchar. If you have a kos pagum, we mentioned that a cup that has been drank from is considered kos pagum. You're not supposed to be saying Havdalah on that. Now the question arises: what if I have a kos pagum shel yayin? I have a revi'ita wine, but it's kos pagum. Someone drank from it, and then I have a whole new bottle of beer. You could put a cup of beer, no problem. It's not going to be pagum. Which one takes precedent? Shulchan Aruch says the cup of wine, something that essentially is more important, will take precedent, even though that is pagum. So therefore, if you have those options, you will be opting for wine that is kos pagum rather than shchar that's not pagum. V'nagu lavdil b'motzei Pesach al shchar v'lo al yayin. Motzei Pesach is this thing that people want to show the difference of Pesach and outside of Pesach, and therefore they eat chametz. You have, by different communities of Sfaradim, you have Memuna, you have other minhagim of having chametz on Motzei Pesach. Again, people think it is it's pikuach nefesh and yarek val yavor, and sometimes you get into a lot of trouble halachically because people will be buying chametz from Chol HaMoed or from thing, we order it from before, or buy it from before Pesach, right before, and they include it in the sale for eating it on Motzei Pesach. So that would be a problem of Rotzeh B'Kiyumo. Again, without getting into the details, this is something that a person should be discussing with a competent Moreh Hora'ah. What is mutar and what's not mutar when it comes to purchasing items that are going to be immediately used after Pesach. Again, this is something that sometimes could become a michshol for people purchasing chametz on Pesach or before Pesach to be used immediately after, and it will be certainly a problem, certainly on a mass level for the stores and even for individuals alike. So says the Shulchan Aruch, ובيום טוב שצריכה להיות במוצאי שבת שיש בו קידוש שהוא נאמר על הפת, יש אומרים שאגב קידוש מבדיל גם עליו. Now imagine if you have a מוצאי שבת that falls to be on Yom Tov, so you want to say Havdalah, but there is Kiddush. You say Havdalah in the Kiddush. As part is incorporated in the Kiddush that you say the bracha of Havdalah. So there are those who say, well, if you don't have wine then, just like on a regular Yom Tov night, you would say the Kiddush on wine, on bread rather, if you don't have wine. You can say Havdalah also on it, incorporated in the bracha of Kiddush. ויש אומרים שאגב קידוש מבדילים גם עליו, ויש אומרים שיותר טוב לומר הקידוש וההבדלה שנאמר שחר. There are those who say best is to say both of them on shchar in that scenario. Again, the Rema over here paskins that the svara rishona is ikar. The first svara is what we go with. The general rule of Shulchan Aruch should dictate over here that the Maran of Shulchan Aruch is siding with the second Yesh Omrim, that better would be to say it with a shchar with chamar medina, be the beverage, not to say it on bread, and that would be the psak of Shulchan Aruch. Says Matei Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Ayash, and Rabbi Tzchak Tayyib from Tunisia in his Erech HaShulchan sides with that as well. Now, this is again, Azor Badiyahu, Vadia in Chelek Bet of Shabbat, also brings this and clarifies that this is Dat Maran, like Yesh veYesh, Halacha ki Yesh Batra, was the general rules of Psak of Shulchan Aruch that we have, and hence, if a Yom Tov falls to be on Motzai Shabbat and you don't have wine, then you would say the Kiddush and Havdalah on a beverage that's considered Chamar Medina, unlike the Psak of the Rama that sides with the first Yesh Omrim to say it on bread. Now, the Mishna Berura says the difference between Kiddush and Havdalah, that Kiddush you can say on bread, but Havdalah you can't, is very simple. Because Kiddush, it has to be b'makom seuda, and therefore the bread is very much part and parcel of the Kiddush. You can't have Kiddush without seuda. So the bread and the Kiddush are inextricably bound together, and hence saying the Kiddush on bread is me'oto inyan, is the same topic of seuda and Kiddush that go together. But by Havdalah is not like that. Havdalah does not need any aspect of bread necessarily. It's not even Seudah Revid, even if you want to have Seudah Revid, which is not an obligation to have it with bread. But it's a nice thing to do. But even that is not connected with Havdalah necessarily. You could say Havdalah at 6 o'clock and have your Seudah Revid, before midnight. It's not necessarily bound together, and hence the difference. Now, this topic of Chamar Medina that we discuss, again, which was discussed already before in Siman Resh Ayin Bet, after the Achot of Kiddush, what's considered Chamar Medina, we discussed this at length over there in the Mishna Berura Chafetz Chaim spoke about it. We spoke about it even further in the modern poskim. And the Mishna Berura here just makes a pointer that the rest of the drinks that the Mishna Berura mentions, the Shulchan Aruch mentions, Hainu mashkin shregilin lishtoto, is very much subjective to the country that you live in. You cannot make one size fit all for every drink that there is. It has to be based on what is accepted in that city, in that country. Aval mashkin shregilin be Pesach kegon, the May licorice, Einan Chamar Medina. Certain things that you can't have beer, you can't have a lot of the alcoholic beverages on Pesach because they're considered derivatives of chametz, and hence you can't have them. And you have other things that are not necessarily Chamar Medina. Even though the people are drinking them on Pesach because there's nothing else, that does not make them a prevalent drink and beverage in the country. It has to be outside of any extenuating circumstance. Pesach is considered extenuating circumstance because you can't drink other things. So the fact that for 1 week everyone is drinking X, Y, and Z does not make those drinks Chamar Medina if during the course of the rest of the year they're not considered popular drinks in the country. You're not accustomed to these things outside of Pesach. Now, he also says that on whiskey, you should not be doing, it's not kedai to be mafdil on vodka or whiskey because the hakatav Magen Avraham, the kos havdalah ragil mafdil lishtot kulo, because the lechatchila, a person should be drinking the entire cup, and the entire cup has to be a revi'it, and you're drinking it at one shot, unless you're Russian background. Like, who's going to be drinking an entire cup of vodka or whiskey in one shot? More than a revi'it. So, therefore, says the Chafetz Chaim is not kedai, even though that the whiskey, the vodka, is considered Chamar Medina, but it's not kedai to say Havdalah on it because of this technical problem. Ve'en mashke mimenu b'nei abayit, you're not giving it to everyone else, you just doing the whole thing yourself. So it's in those drinks that are high level of alcohol, it's difficult to be mekayem this, and obviously that would tell you that if you don't have anything else, you can say it on vodka, you could say it on whiskey as well. At the very least, you have to have 45 grams, cc's of it, which is Milo Lugmav. That would be like, almost, it will be almost 2 ounces, less than 2 ounces. Like 2 ounce would be 27 cc's. This is 45. So, more than, it's slightly more than a full shot of a shot glass at once. Even though that your cup has to be bigger, but that would be the amount that you would have. I think the normal shot glass is ounce and a half. Is that correct? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So this will be closer to 2 ounces. So 45 cc's of the liquid you want to have. Shu rov revi'it. It's the majority of revi'it. Ve'im lav lo yatza. If not, you're not yotze. If you don't do that, that's the minimum that you have to sip at once. And therefore you have to do that in one shot. Katav b'sharet shuva b'shem habirkei. That's a difficult thing to do unless you're used to those types of drinks. Katav b'sharet shuva b'shem habirkei Yosef al halav v'shemen en le'avdil. Writes in the name of Maran Chida that another thing that you can't say it on is milk, and of course oil. It's not considered Chamar Medina because people are not drinking milk as a mashke. Majority of people, you don't see them go fill up a cup of milk and drink it. Maybe they should, but it's not done. At least it wasn't done back then. I'm not sure if it has changed nowadays. And therefore, if it's not done, it's considered non-Chamar Medina. Now, again, there are those who say that, for instance, the Yaakov Hajiz in his Halachot Ketanot, he writes that tea and coffee also is like that. People don't drink it. Back then, maybe it was not necessarily considered a prevalent drink like it is nowadays, right? But again, on arak and cognac, which is actually grape-based, it's brandy basically, and beer and liqueur, all those things, you could say Havdalah if you don't have wine because they're considered Chamar Medina. You just have to go through checking all the boxes, of practical boxes of drinking enough of them and so on and so forth.
What's the time limit?
At once, you're just having it at least 45 cc's of it at once. Now,
But why is it directly correlated to the general public and not
because that is what gives it chashivut. The concept of Kiddush and Havdalah was instituted that it has to be said on a cup of beverage that is super important. Now, the father of all drinks is wine. That's the most important. It's an important drink. It's even nowadays. Back in time, Chazal was way more important because they didn't have juices and stuff like that, coffee and tea, and all those did not exist, right? People drank wine with their food. That was the most prevalent, the most used beverage that you had. They would water it down a little bit, maybe, but that's what they had. Nowadays, we have an array of drinks that are popular, but the concept of Chamar Medina tells you that it's not only wine that Chazal included, but it's any important drink that is also popular in the country. The people give it chashivut. It's not chashuv if people don't drink it, right? If you go to Scotland, people are not drinking agave, patch, or not what do you call it? No. The alcohol that comes from it. Tequila, right? If you go to Mexico, people are not drinking scotch. They will be repelled by it. It's not smooth enough. It's not what. And people have countries have their thing. So in Mexico City, it would be considered, having tequila would be considered certainly Chamar Medina. Scotch, not so pashut. And in Scotland, and areas around it, not so pashut if tequila would be considered something that people have. And in most of the other places in the world, they have everything. That's considered. Different people have different choices of alcoholic beverage, but it's considered Chamar Medina. It's hard to have that much of it in one shot, so that's considered a challenge. But nevertheless, halachically speaking, would be tuned. Says Shulchan Aruch in Seif Gimal. אם אין לו יין ולא שחר ושאר משכין, יש אומרים שמותר לו לאכול. If you don't have wine or any other Chamar Medina, what do? You're stuck. You're hungry. You want to have Sudat if you eat. But you don't have wine to say Havdalah. You don't have other beverages. And we told you that you can't do it on bread either. So what do? So it says, the Shulchan Aruch, that those who say you can actually go ahead and eat without Havdalah. Right? And there are those who say, She'im mesapeh sheyeh lo lemachar. If you know tomorrow morning for sure you're going to have it, let's say you fell asleep, you woke up late at night, let's say Shabbat, you wake up at midnight, you want to say Havdalah, you don't have wine. No neighbors are awake, but tomorrow morning I could borrow wine or any other Chamar Medina from my neighbors. So I could say tomorrow, I know for sure I will have wine or proper beverage available to me tomorrow morning. Then there are those who say you should not eat tonight without Havdalah. Just wait until tomorrow morning. Lo yochal ad lemachar sheyavdil, until you do Havdalah tomorrow morning. V'im en lo ela kos echad ve'eno mesapeh sheyeh lo lemachar. If you only have one cup, and tomorrow there's no chance that you're going to have more, mutav shechal kodem sheyavdil ve'yivarech alav birkat hamazon. It's better it's better to eat without Havdalah and use that for kos shel Birkat Hamazon. Again, the importance of the cup of Birkat Hamazon. Again, we spoke about this at length at a different point. Why nowadays this has become, niznach, it has become something that people don't necessarily do. But halachically speaking, the level of kos shel Birkat Hamazon is a higher level than having even Havdalah. This way you say Havdalah on it after eating. In other words, you eat, you wash, you eat your Sudar of eat, you use the cup for Birkat Hamazon, and then before you drink it, you say Havdalah on it, and then you drink it. This way, the only thing you did wrong was you ate before Havdalah. But you said Havdalah on a cup, and you used that cup for Birkat Hamazon also. By the way, why is this not En Osin Mitzvot Chavilot? Right? Why is that? You have actually many shuls that they, on Sudash Lishit, they have a cup of wine that they say Havdalah on, and then they leave it to say, benching of Sudash Lishit on, and then they leave it to say Havdalah on it. Same question. Why is that not considered Enosim Mitzvot Chavilot? You don't do Mitzvot in bundles and bundles. The Pri Megadim writes, the reason is because Enosim Mitzvot Chavilot is when you simultaneously using something for two different mitzvot. But if it's not simultaneous, if it's Bezeh Achar Zeh, then on the contrary, once it was, Chazal say, Kevan de Na'avid ba mitzvah, with ba mitzvah achariti. Once you use it for one mitzvah, you want to use it for another mitzvah. You say this in, the halachot of lulav etrog. This is where it is, the Pegadim, that you keep your lulav and hadasim and aravot to burn them with the chametz on Erev Pesach, to use them for the mitzvah of biur chametz, because once you did the mitzvah with them, you want another mitzvah to be done by them as well. And that's what Pri Megadim asked this question of chavilot, and answers what we said, which would be applicable over here as well. You do one mitzvah of the kos shel bracha of Birkat Hamazon with it, and then you leave it for saying Havdalah on that same very cup as well, which is what the Shulchan Aruch paskins over here.
The concept of pagum doesn't apply.
It's not pagum. It's a full cup. You say it back to back before you drink.
Oh, before you drink?
Yeah. You say the Havdalah on a cup of wine, right? Then you're finished. Now you have to say Bor Pri HaGefen to drink it, right? So instead of just saying Bor Pri HaGefen and drink it, you say, all the psukim of Rishon LeZion, and you say Bor Pri HaGefen, right? Again, you remember Yibane Yayin, Besamim, Ner Havdalah. You say all those four brachot, and then you drink, and Hazaku Baruch, that would be fine. Says the Shulchan Aruch, that is better than saying Birkat Hamazon without the kos, without a cup of wine. L'divrei ha'omrim Birkat Hamazon te'unakos, because there is a serious shita in halacha that Birkat Hamazon needs to be said on a cup of wine. Or l'divrei ha'omrim not te'unakos, even according to those who say Birkat Hamazon does not need a cup of wine, lo yochal ad she'yavdil. Then according to them, it should come out that you should not eat until you say Havdalah. Umayri shekol zeh lo haya bo ela revi'it b'simsun. We talk about a case that this cup is a small cup. It only has a revi'it. Koshi has a revi'it, right? But it has more than revi'it. What you do is, if you have a little more than revi'it, what you do is you say Havdalah on it, right? You drink a little bit, then you add a little bit more to make it not pagum, and then you say Havdalah on it. Say both. If you have a little bit more than revi'it, then you could pour a little bit of it out in the beginning, say Birkat Hamazon, drink a little bit, then add the remaining wine to make it not pagum, and then you have a revi'it still to say the Havdalah on it. That would be obviously the best way to go if you have more than revi'it of wine. That basically concludes Seif Gimal, and Bezrat Hashem will continue on Seif Dalet in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.